So we have the blue-red Wizards and white-black Eldrazi taxes. So the Wizards deck, or Jeff's build of it, you mentioned 4 Delver of Secrets, 4 Nimble Obstructionist. Now I'm going to assume we have 4 Snapcaster Mage, as it is a Wizards deck in Modern.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to pair with 4 Lightning Bolt and 4 Wizards Lightning. And this is going to be really good against a lot of what Luke is bringing to the table. Jeff's deck not really vulnerable to Eldrazi Displacer. He is going to have problems with the 4 Toughness creatures, the Thought-Knot Seers. No Reality Smashers in the Black-White Taxes list, though, so that is a sigh of relief for Jeff. 3 Toughness creatures or less than 3 Toughness creatures, pretty easy for this deck to deal with.
No plays on the first 2 turns for Luke other than a Shambling Vent on each turn. Likely suggesting he's Eldrazi Taxes, but it actually still disguises his archetype.
Right. Shambling Vent doesn't show up in too many decks. The second copy probably means this is not an Abzan strategy that you might think when you see a Shambling Vent. No Ether Vial, though, is a sigh of relief for Jeff. The fact that everything's just kind of on the table, sorcery speed creatures, is pretty easy to manage when your deck is full up on Lightning Bolts, Wizards Lightnings. Again, he is going to want to fade Thought-Knot Seers, and Luke could have one on this turn if he has an Eldrazi Temple.
Yeah, well, he does have the Temple. Does he have the Thought-Knot? Looks like he does not. Instead, it's just Eldrazi Displacer. Now, Jeff has opted twice, but no creature of his own. So we'll go back over to his side.
And he does have a few creatures that are a little bit more expensive. There are those 4 Nimble Obstructionists. He also plays 2 Vendilion Clicks.
Now, Sion, it's going to be Delver of Secrets. And on end step, Luke will path to exile the Delver. This may seem aggressive as Jeff missed his 3rd land drop. And you see, in response, Jeff, a Wizard's Lightning down the Eldrazi Displacer. Luke, though I believe, Ryan, is giving him Jeff the extra land because he has at least 1 copy of Wasteland Strangler, so he's trying to put a card into exile.
Yeah, he wants that to be online, and that is going to be really powerful against all of the creatures in Jeff's deck.
Blade Splicer, the next threat for Luke. He has had 2 Wasteland Stranglers.
Yeah, not having any cards in exile when you draw those Stranglers, it is going to be tough. And Path to Exile, Thought-Knot Seer, Tide Hollow Sculler. The deck is pretty light on effects at exile. Flicker Wisp could enable it as well.
Yeah, he did have for... Yeah, you're right. So they're not too much.
Nothing like a main deck Relic of Progenitus.
Yeah, Eldrazi Displacer, and there's never actually a window for that to work.
Right.
Grim Lavamancer from Hoogland. Pass back. He still has 5 in hand as he'll take 3 off the Golem.
Lavamancer pretty medium in the matchup. As you can already see on the battlefield, it can't deal with this 3/3 Golem. It does enable Wizard's Lightnings, which is good.
Wasteland Strangler's hit by Mana Leak, and Luke will make another Wasteland Strangler.
And here you're going to see a Flame Tongue Kavu-esque effect. And you see the Delver goes to the graveyard, the Lavamancer tagged, and now Hoogland pretty far on the back foot. Again, a lot of his creatures do cost 3 mana. It's possible he's been hanging out with a Nimble Obstructionist and/or a Vendilion Click. His 3rd land was only afforded to him by Path to Exile here. So he's really not able to leverage that, and he's taking a lot of damage here. Luke attacking for 6. Golem and the Strangler coming across.
And Jeff, Snapcaster Mage here. This is going to be that Wizard's Lightning again. And I do like this interaction now with Snapcaster. It is just more Lightning Bolts.
Yep. Yeah, you can cast the Wizard's Lightning from the graveyard for the reduced cost. Luke did have a window here with the Snapcaster trigger on the stack. If he had a removal spell, if you destroy or exile the Snapcaster Mage, then you won't be able to cast the Wizard's Lightning.
Yeah, but Luke's Eldrazi Tax is showing off here. Jeff had traded down the board, but Luke post-combat gets to make Flicker Wisp. It'll exile his own Blade Splicer, and that resets for another 3/3.
Yeah, the Snapcaster was able to trade away the damage, but Luke's battlefield is right back where it was. And Jeff's removal suite, he has 4 Wizard's Lightning, 4 Lightning Bolt, 2 Burst Lightning. Nothing like an Electrolyze here. There's no main deck Harvest Pyre. That's it for the burn spells available.
Yeah, no, so a bit of a struggle here then for Jeff as he just has to pass. Thalia from Luke. And he did pick up, that'll get hit by Spell Snare. Luke did pick up Concealed Courtyard, which means starting next turn he can actually activate one of those Shambling Vents.
Yeah, he only had 1 colored mana source previously, so you can start beating down there.
Swing in, Burst Lightning takes care of Flicker Wisp. That's more of the removal you're talking about. Lightning Bolt takes care of the Golem.
And this is
no damage.
Fine at all, but Jeff's been using premium spells to deal with Golem tokens. He's really light on cards. This is a deck that wants to get on the battlefield, get in your chip shots, and then use these burn spells upstairs.
Right.
You can play this removal game, but if you're not clocking your opponent, you're just kind of falling behind. And when we see Luke start activating these shambling vents and start gaining life, if Jeff doesn't have an answer for that on the spot, the game just gets harder over time.
Yeah, and it looks like we're just waiting then for Luke to hit something like an Eldrazi Displacer. There's a lot of great hits for him. We'll get Thought Knot Seer from Luke. See if Jeff has a Remand or a Mana Leak. Mana Leak wouldn't actually work here, though, because of how Luke tapped.
Right. Yeah, leaving up 3 mana here. Take 2 Mana Leaks, and again, Jeff is already pretty resource light. I believe 3 cards in hand.
Yeah.
No battlefield presence to speak of. Also doesn't play any high-impact spells like a Cryptic Command. This is really just a small ball kind of deck. 3 tops out the curve, and it's just creatures with 3 power.
Well, he does have 4 Nimble Obstructionist, and this would be a window where 1 would be a reasonable card, to see if he has it.
You could cycle to stifle the trigger, though, or you can just flash in a 3-1. Either of those effects are fine. They're not great, though. Because he really wants the obstructionist on the battlefield, and you don't get to stifle things when you get the bird. That card would probably see a lot more play if you got to stifle with the 3-1.
Right, the only way you get the stifle is when it cycles.
Right. It is going to come up in some matchups.
And it looks like that's what he'll do. He'll stifle the Enter the Battlefield trigger on Thought Knot Seer.
Yeah, so this is a win in the sense that he won't have to discard a card. He still has to deal with all his power on the battlefield, though.
And so we see that cycle there, countering the activated ability. But post-combat, Luke, and Ryan, this is just when he uses Flicker Wisp to get his own Thought Knot back. I almost thought we'd want to see that on Blade Splicer.
I think there's a couple reasons why you go for the Thought Knot over the Blade Splicer. The first, Jeff has that red mana up, so the Blade Splicer, it can just get hit by a removal spell in response to the Flicker Wisp. The other is Jeff just cycled Nimble Obstructionist on the first Thought Knot Seer trigger. There's a reasonable argument that he's trying to hide something there, so you do kind of want to get a look at that hand.
Yeah, and now we do know Jeff's hand is a land, a Mana Leak, and then an unknown card. And Luke with an attack in here for 7. Jeff will just have to flash Nimble Obstructionist into play. That'll trade with Shambling Vent. But you're right, he's just kind of getting ground down by these resources.
Mm-hmm. And the trade with that Vent, that does change the clock a little bit, as now Jeff takes 5 from 12 down to 7 rather than just being lethal in 2. But Luke has the follow-up land, so he'll be able to present lethal again on the following turn.
Yeah, and there's 1 card in Jeff's hand, and both players know it's Mana Leak. If Luke just makes the onboard attack, that'll send us to game 2.
Yep, Jeff knows it, and that's where we're going.
So game 1 to Luke Vankleek on Eldrazi Taxes. Go to the sideboard in a second. Now, Ryan, the other thing, though, of course, we are playing Bingo this weekend. If you guys want to play along over on our Twitter page, pinned up at the top, we have Bingo cards for myself and for Ryan. I'm on the board as of 2 weeks ago with a draw. It's my first points of all of 2018.
A match point. Well played.
And I'm going to be on a roll. Hoogland cycled a card. I'm going to check that off.
Proud of you.
You know, basically just going infinite here.
You know,
that is that. I'm going to stop there before it gets too out of control.
Hot streak starts somewhere. This is just the tipping point.
All right, so Jeff Hoogland is down a game with Blue Red Wizards. Let's take a look at the sideboard he's chosen to bring today. A lot of 2-ofs. 2 Magma Sprays, 2 Abrades, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 copies of Alpine Moon, 2 Izzet Staticaster, 2 Negate, and then some 1-ofs, a Roast and Entrancing Melody. That's the blue X Mind Control spell, and then 1 Dispel.
The best hit here is going to be that copy of Roast. You have a way to deal with Thought Knot Seer on the battlefield. Just more removal is going to be good here. You have a couple other options that are fine. I don't think you can really lean on Disdainful Stroke. It's only going to hit Thought Knot Seer in this matchup. Not really the prettiest spot for that. The 2 Abrades I like well enough. This is an Ether Vial matchup, but there's no Vial around. That's a little bit better for you. There's a lot of 3 toughness creatures. given that he does not have access to that much that can deal with a Thought-Knot Seer, being heavy on ways to deal with everything else, certainly being able to get Eldrazi Displacer off the table is going to be a big box for Jeff to check.
Do you like Entrancing Melody in this matchup? There's even a large number of smallish creatures.
It costs a lot of mana, and you saw there Jeff, he only ever got up to 4, 5. It's going to be tough to convert that against a Thought-Knot Seer.
Yeah.
I don't think I like it.
You can hit a Golem token would just be 2 mana. But I don't know. But you're right. The problem is that Thought-Knot blanks all these things.
Yeah, there's some fine exchanges. It could certainly come in. It's not very exciting.
That's true. On Luke's side, he's got a 14-card sideboard. I'm going to go ahead. We see it here. Just let you pick out if there's any big hits on this one.
Yeah, so the 2 Blessed Alliance, they tend to be pretty good against decks with a couple creatures and a lot of burn spells.
Yeah.
It's just kind of everything this card does is going to be excellent here. Worship is a card that Jeff's probably not happy to see. I think it's a little mopey in the matchup. Don't really love that, because Jeff's already kind of planning on killing all your creatures anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jeff's capable of clearing the board.
You might think this could be a young Pyromancer matchup. You saw a lot of one-toughness creatures, so Orzhov Pontiff is likely to play a big role in the matchup. Fatal Push is another removal spell. That's pretty excellent. I think that's about it for this sideboard. I wouldn't mind having a Gideon against a deck that's trying to grind me down, just because Gideon's really good if the game looks anything like Game 1.
Yeah, the top deck Gideon would be much like the top deck, much like the Thought-Knot Seer was in that game.
Right.
Yeah, now there was a concern, what is it? If it was Gideon, he would not have been able to play around Mana Leak. We know that Jeff's on at least some copies of that card.
Yep. Yeah, Mana Leak is an issue, but just having another high-impact spell to compound any kind of advantage. You saw there a lot of times in combat, Jeff had to be doing things like cast Snapcaster Mage, flashback a removal spell, then main phase 2, make your Gideon, make an ally. Suddenly Jeff's in a really tough spot.
Luke looks like a scry to the top after a mulligan, and we'll start game number 2.
Yeah, Jeff, of course, on the play here.
All right, so we'll start here. Jeff Hoogland with a turn 1 Delver of Secrets. It does not transform, so he just swings in for 1.
21 main deck ways to transform Delver of Secrets in Jeff's deck. It can be a little bit tall order. In Legacy, when you see Delver, there's usually closer to 30. Serum Visions can set it up, but Jeff has not had that just yet. Just leaving up 2 mana on the second turn.
If you would like to play today's Inlevelly Again Standard Challenge, please.
One of the few reasons that Delver of Secrets didn't make the cut in my Wizards deck. Also, it's just not a wizard on the back side.
Right, it's a human wizard on the front and then a
Human insect on the back.
Yeah.
It gets a new job when you transform it.
Well, an insect is a full-time job.
Yeah. The Wizard Council frowns upon insects, I suppose.
And they don't want you moonlighting as an insect. Aether Vial for Luke. Jeff plays a second Delver of Secrets on there on turn 3. Misses the land drop. Still no transform just yet.
If these bolts transform next turn, though, he is off to the races.
Yeah, well, on his side, he's hoping there's nothing like Orzhov Pontiff. And there's not. It's just Wasteland Strangler, no process.
Yikes.
And Jeff will Magma Spray down the Wasteland Strangler. Can he transform the Delvers now? Let's find out. And off Lightning Bolt, no less. This is a quick clock.
Yeah, now Jeff is actually in a really good position. Missed that land drop, but whatever. He's drawing Lightning Bolt, putting Luke down to 12, possibly as a Mana Leak. The Vial's only going up to 2 here, so Jeff can tag most of what he cares about with a Mana Leak here.
Yeah, I could see this being a pretty quick game. Aether Vial. It's going to try to help Luke fight back. It's going to put Tide Hollow Sculler into play. And this could be pretty good if the Sculler doesn't get removed. Luke looks like he has another Wasteland Strangler. And Jeff is going to Lightning Bolt with the trigger on.
I think that was going upstairs.
Yeah, that's going upstairs. You don't want to bolt. You don't want to bolt the Sculler with the trigger on.
Yeah, this is one of those cards with 2 separate triggers, an enters trigger and a leaves trigger. So if the enters trigger is on the stack and you remove it, then it's just going to get a card and you're never going to get it back.
Jeff's hand is 2 Wizard's Lightnings and an Is It Staticaster. So Luke will use the Wasteland Strangler to process the Obstructionist into Jeff's graveyard and to kill an Insectile Aberration.
Yep.
Opt for Jeff. He still has, with Luke at 9 and now attacking to 6, he has 2 copies of Wizard's Lightning in his hand. There's lethal burn here.
He just opted a Lightning Bolt to the top, too. That means any land or any wizard's going to turn on Wizard's Lightning for lethal on the following turn.
Chef at Dunes for Luke.
I suppose the 3-mana wizards still aren't going to be happy draws.
Well, here's Thought Knot Seer, and Jeff sends a bolt upstairs. That sends Luke to 3, which means Luke's going to have something to violin on 3.
He does have a Flicker Wisp in hand, so the aberration is covered.
Ooh, and how about this? He's going to go ahead and Flicker Wisp the Wasteland Strangler and take a Wizard's Lightning. Yeah, Jeff's. But 1 land will do it. And there's land, Wizard's Lightning. Jeff sends 3 up, and we're going to game 3.
And that's exactly where Jeff wants to be. You saw him get some creatures on the battlefield early, send those lightning bolts upstairs at Luke instead of using them on creatures. And his deck's not great at attrition games. His deck is good at burn games.
And for all the burn Jeff had, Luke actually made a game of that at the end. I think managing to nab a couple of burn spells with Thought Knot Seer, and at the same time being able to use Wasteland Strangler on both the Insectile Aberrations.
Yeah, and the texture of the game is pretty different having Jeff on the play there as well. If Luke is able to start exiling things on turn 2, start converting Wasteland Stranglers on turn 3, you're taking less damage off the Aberrations. It was really about Jeff being able to leverage that early pressure. This is going to be bad against a deck that's full up on Fatal Pushes, Lightning Bolts, but the Eldrazi Taxes deck takes a little bit longer to set up. And that's where Jeff was able to find a window, punch in that early damage, and then close the game with some burn.
And Jeff, a quick present from on his side, and same for Luke. Pretty impressed at Wasteland Strangler in this matchup. There's 3 copies of it on Luke's side, but they've looked excellent so far.
It just kills all of Jeff's creatures. None of them get around it. Looks like outside of transforming Delver of Secrets, 1 toughness is the ceiling for Jeff's deck.
Okay.
This is like this is actually part of why I picked the creature suite I did when I built my build of Wizards, is that Jeff's deck looks ice cold to an opponent casting 1 copy of Electrolyze.
Yeah, that or an Is It Staticaster?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the humans matchup probably a little bit rough for that reason.
Yeah, I was saying, Electrolyze actually is a pretty popular card right now in Modern, too.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Niklich is never going to put him down. John Rossum only puts him down sometimes.
Looks like a mulligan on game 3 again for Luke. So he's on 6. He'll be on the play for this one, though.
The composition that he had on the draw on 6 cards in game 2 looked like it might have been enough to win the game on the play.
Yeah, I agree. That did look that way.
So he is going down to 5 here. Kind of the thing about these Ether Vial decks is that when you're lower on cards, those vials, they're a lot like more lands. You have a number of misses when you're low on resources. He does have the highest impact cards in the matchup. If he's able to roll Blade Splicers, Thought Knot Seers, those are really good against Jeff's deck.
Yeah, in both the last games we saw, Lucas cast Thought Knot Seers in games 1 and 2, and a Thought Knot Seer has yet to leave the battlefield. So there hasn't, without the drawback, the card's just stellar in the matchup.
Right. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. That's a 3 of in Luke's deck. It's also quite good against this deck that's really light on lands, heavy on spells.
And we are going to go here with game number 3.
No Vial for Luke, though Jeff is online with the Delver of Secrets.
He has the Delver. Luke answers with Thalia. We see that the Delver will transform immediately this game off the card Abrade.
Yeah, Jeff won't be able to cast Abrade just yet because of Thalia, but his deck's pretty heavy on things that can answer Thalia.
Yeah, and because he's just +3 cards on Luke this game, 1 for the draw, 2 for a pair of mulligans, even if he has to wait a turn, I don't think that's a big punishment.
Also, he just has 2 more creatures that he can cast on turn 2. Things looking pretty good for Jeff now.
Yeah, Thalia attacks in, but you're right. Another Delver of Secrets and a Grim Lavamancer was the second turn here. Luke will cast Eldrazi Displacer, but then we go back.
And we do know that Jeff has at a braid a third land. I imagine we want to just aim right for that Displacer. That's a troublesome creature. When you activate it on Delver of Secrets, the Intactile Aberration rather, you reset it, untransform it. That can be a real headache. And there you see that a braid takes care of Displacer.
Yep.
And Luke has Worship here, but just one card left over in hand. And he can't cast that, actually.
Because of his Thalia?
Right. Not to mention that it's not going to be difficult for Jeff to deal with Thalia. He has Grim Lavamancer just on the table, and it's going to be pretty easy for Jeff to close the game from here. The Delver doesn't transform again, but he already has the one Aberration. That closes the game by itself in 4 turns. Jeff plays Wandering Fumarole, 2 of those in the deck. Also playing 4 Mutavaults. That's pretty heavy on creature lands. Magma Spray takes care of the Thalia. Team comes across for 5. Luke is down to 7.
Yeah.
And is Worship, picked up Concealed Courtyard, and is a Thalia.
Well, here's another Thalia, but even if he has the Worship for it, Grim Lavamancer's ready to take care of that, and Jeff is closing in. Luke at 7.
Yeah. He failed again to transform the Delver, but he would just have lethal very easily if he did that this turn.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think that Delver is going to transform this game, but it seems like that'll be okay.
Right. Yeah, plenty of reach available. Already 2 cards in the graveyard. Good mix of burn spells on the deck. Again, 4 Wizard's Lightning, 4 Lightning Bolt. Given that he boarded in Magma Spray, I would expect that the 2 Burst Lightnings are still in the deck. This is not a matchup where you really care about exiling your opponent's creatures.
Not so much. Grim Lavamancer, 2 cards exiled away out of the graveyard. I think we're going to shoot down that Thalia, and we will. Swing in for 4, drops Luke down to 3. Jeff doesn't have the burn spell yet, but he'll cast Vendilion Click during Luke's draw, and that is going to be the match. So a pair of sideboarded victories for Jeff Hoogland. A bit of shake of the head on that third one, a bit of a runaway.